You are listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer. References to a child as him or her in this podcast are meant to be gender neutral. Chitra Iyer is a parent of a 21-year-old Shravan Iyer who has epilepsy, cerebral palsy and autism. She is the CEO of MFA and has been helping families with life-centered planning to reach their personal financial goals. She is also a trustee of a parent support group, the Forum for Autism, which was set up almost 2 decades ago. MFA is a 15-year-old organization working in the personal finance space. They have set up a dedicated practice to help families with special needs children plan their financial goals and invest for the same. The thoughts shared here are a result of discussions with parents, caregivers, siblings and professionals regarding the planning of a person with special needs. In this podcast, Chitra Iyer talks to Dr. Vibha Krishnamurthy, Developmental Paediatrician and founder of Ummeed Child Development Centre, on her insights about future financial security of children with disabilities.
Hi, welcome to the Expert Speaks series on the Special Needs podcast with me. Today I have with me the expert on childhood development, Dr. Vibha Krishnamurthy, our go-to person for any family who needs guidance for their child with any disability in Mumbai. I have personally known Vibha since she diagnosed Shravan at Ummeed and also as a key advisor to the Forum for Autism, which is a parent support group that has been guiding families of children with autism over the last 20 years. Ummeed is in its milestone year in 2021, and what an amazing journey we have witnessed. It filled up a vacuum that was glaring for many families by providing integrated services for clinical care. Ummeed is a resource center in the field of developmental disabilities for professionals, families, and community organizations. Vibha's vision is to put Ummeed at the forefront of a movement to make the inclusion of children with developmental disabilities a visible agenda for India. She is the expert on child disability and an advisor to the Government of India, WHO, and the UNICEF. Thank you so much, Vibha, for agreeing to be on this podcast with me.
Pleasure to be with you, Chitra. Thank you for having me.
Vibha, I'd like to start with the first question. In the last 20 years, since you set up Ummeed, what are the changes that you see primarily related to diagnosis and therapy for children with disabilities?
So, Chitra, the landscape has changed a lot in the last 20 years and mostly in positive ways. I mean, if I look at professionals today. When we first started Ummeed, people didn't even know what certain disabilities were. They didn't understand that this was not a medical condition um, alone. And the opportunities for therapy or education or even leisure or residence, all of those were practically non-existent. I think I look around me today, and at least in the major metros of India, I would say awareness and services both have increased quite a lot. And I think as far as families are concerned, thanks to media, social media, and efforts of a lot of people like you and Forum for Autism, I think awareness about when to pay attention to your child's development, when to get concerned, where to seek help, has increased amongst parents in general. They don't have to rely only on a professional to point it out to them. So many positive changes. On the flip side, I would say there's a long way to go still. I'm still talking about the metros, and even there, it's not enough. And in tier 2, tier 3 cities or in rural areas, I think still things are pretty bad, both in terms of awareness and services. And lastly, I'm going to say, you know, costs increase, and similarly, costs of services increase. So, for a family's journey through understanding and working with disability, I think one of the challenges they have to look at is the financial aspect of how this is going to impact them. Yeah, so even that over the last 20 years, yes, the services have increased, but so have costs of not just services, but other things in life. And so I think for families to think about that is also has also become a very important part of the journey.
Very true, Vibha. The number of services has gradually increased in the metro cities. Earlier, we used to trudge all over Mumbai for a couple of hours to reach firstly for the diagnosis. Since Ummeed came up, we had the first developmental pediatricians come to town. And today we have many more diagnostic services across town. We also thankfully have various therapies available now, not just the important physiotherapy, speech, occupational, behavior modification therapy, and special education, but a whole host of other specialized services are also available. And thankfully, we've really come a long way. As you said, the cost definitely increases just with inflation. We have witnessed this escalation in just therapy costs for our children, as they have all these needs and many more now in their 20s and 30s. The big question I have for you is, how do you think parents or caregivers should be prepared monetarily for their children, as they become adults now, Vibha? When they come to you for diagnosis, which is happening much earlier, between the age of 6 months to 3 years, they have to deal with, first of all, accepting that the child has a disability, go through this entire process with their family, talk to friends, get help from everyone surrounding them to think, you know, positive, and also get ready for everything they need to quickly start in terms of early intervention for their child. At some point, they need to start thinking about the child's future and hence his or her future planning. What would you say to guide them?
So Chitra, it's not, the question's not as easy as it seems, because I think it would be very easy for me to say, oh, they must plan for their child's future and they must think about where is he going to live and what is she going to do and so forth. But when your child is 3 or 4 or 7, it's really hard to imagine what 25 or 30 looks like. And not only just hard to imagine, it can be overwhelming to plan that far ahead. But I think it's possible to do it in small chunks. And I think to think about, what do I hope for my child 3 years from now, 4 years from now? And maybe it is, well, I'd like my child to be able to go out and play in the garden with other kids, or I would like my child to go to preschool. Well, that involves the ability to take your child to a garden that's accessible. It involves paying school fees. So thinking about just the immediate, 3 to 4 year vision, and thinking, okay, for that, how much or what will be my planning required? Um, and to make that visible, and to make it visible not just to the rest of your family, but also to your child. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that, Chitra, because many times it feels like the roles are clearly demarcated. Mother will take child to therapy, father will go out and earn, and will spend all his nights lying awake thinking about how I'm going to earn, while the mother's lying awake thinking about, how do I handle the teacher tomorrow when she says something about my child. So both are off in two different spaces worrying, instead of which it can be a collaborative effort. Both can be involved in both. And I think women are often good also at financial planning. So if both mother and father think about, okay, what do we need for the next 4 to 5 years? For what do we hope for our child for the next few years? Therefore, what do we need and how do we plan for it? I think there's a sense of working as a team together. I think making financial issues visible to children, sometimes parents feel I need to protect my child from knowing these things. So sometimes I see parents of children with learning disabilities, and they'll say, he has so much to do academically. I don't want to burden him with thinking about finances. But on the other hand, if you make it visible to the child that, look, we've got this much for this evening, right? For example, I don't think we can afford to spend more than 250 rupees on this meal. So let's think about, and so and so is going to charge this much for delivery. So let's think about what we want to get, and let's think about how we supplement that from stuff at home with stuff at home. That's one way of demonstrating to your child how to think about monetary value, how to plan how much you spend and how you spend it. So I think both things are important: planning together as a family, planning for the short term, and demonstrating to your child how you plan, so that that becomes part of the child's sort of thinking as well.
You are absolutely spot on what you said, Vibha. I wanted to go back to where you mentioned how automatically most special need families become single earning families because the mother is the one who has to stay at home. She has to take the child to all the therapies or to school, and so often I've come across mothers saying, I had to give up on my job. I'd like to go back, but I can't. These are doctors, engineers, finance professionals, all of them who are to take a step back to take care of their child. And when they call me, they really feel bad that they're not earning. They say बहुत खर्चा है और हमको हमारे बच्चे के लिए पैसा कमाना है, बचाना है, but मैम टाइम ही नहीं मिलता. I don't have time to do anything for myself or think about going to work. I would love to supplement the family income, but I cannot. How do I go about it? And they ask me, how did I do it? I share how I felt that, we were kind of ready to start work. I was ready to start work when Shravan was ready to go to school or even was being homeschooled. My husband Ravi told me that disability is going to be a part of our life, and that doesn't mean that you must give up on a career or what you thought you always wanted to do. I got lucky to find a place that was so conducive to my situation. So I'm sure, Vibha, at least in the metros, you might have met a lot of families where the woman could go back to work, or many single women who are actually taking care of their child with their parents. Any such stories that you can share? How they could go about doing this? Where both need to go work to get the money home, or how they have to make the choice to work around this and think about what better they can do financially for themselves and their child.
So, Chitra, this is really something that's very close to my heart. I feel, um, you know, uh, that women have multiple roles that they could possibly play in their lives. And it's not just about finances, but for every woman, her choice of when and how she works is also about her as a person. She's first a person, and then she is mother, wife, all those things. And so I think we need to honor the personhood of every mother and say what is her wish for who she wants to be. And she may make a choice that I don't want to work for 2 years, and we will plan together as a family to manage with one income, and that's fine too. There is no judgment on that. And similarly, there should be no judgment on a woman who says, you know what, for my own mental health as well as for my family's financial well-being, I do need to work, and that's okay too. And I think children learn to respect their parents for that, and do not resent them. I think that the other thing, so that's the first point that I'd like to make, that the choice to work or not work should be decided based on not just financial need, but also other needs for a person to feel satisfied with their lives. I think the second thing I'm going to say is that sometimes we don't lean enough on families, friends to make that possible. And so there are always options. I know so many stories of incredible grandparents, Chitra, including your own parents, in terms of how they leaned in, were there for their families, and very special relationships that develop between grandparents and grandchildren. Older people also have the need to feel needed. We don't want to burden them, but at the same time, they can offer respite for a few hours. We can use them in many wonderful ways. So that was the second thing I was thinking about. The third thing I was thinking about, Chitra, was the fact that Amartya Sen has spoken about how disability ends up being a double disadvantage at times, because a person with disability may find it hard to get a job. And the caregiver, if that person is not independent, also loses out on earning potential. Um, the latter need not happen if we work with our kids on independence. So rather than diverting all our energies into, normalizing, it's more important to think of, can my child function in the home independently? Can she eat, dress, bathe, brush her teeth, run an errand, help out in the home, put the clothes in the wash and dry them? Can she do all of those things end to end independently? Because at the end of the day, that frees up one person's earning potential and also prepares the child for a job. So both become possible, because unless you know how to do something end to end, you can't hold a job, whether it's as simple as filing something or whatever. So those would be my three thoughts, Chitra. And as far as stories are concerned, sorry, you asked me for a story. I want to tell the story of one of my patients' mothers who noticed that transport was such a big hassle for her child. And at the same time, she wanted to earn. They were a low middle income family. She heard from somebody that there was a loan being given to women auto drivers. So she learned how to drive an auto, got the loan, purchased an auto, and in the time, and it was a flexi job, right? It was flexible. In the time that her child was at school, she would drive the auto, earn money, and she was able to pick him up and drop him off. So there was that double advantage. So that was just one story.
Thanks, Vibha, for that wonderful story you just shared with us. Definitely more, making a film on her soon. She will inspire so many. What you shared about Amartya Sen is exactly what we need to try and address as parents. Yes, one income of the child in the future, maybe of one parent too, gets impacted. But if a family can work on making the child independent, that itself will be a huge achievement. After which, we need to figure out what they think the child can do in the future. Can she earn? How much or not is the next big step, right? In our case, Ravi always says that Shravan is the mascot for being happy and for bringing happiness into a room. So even if he feels he has to make him sit in his office, that itself would be great. We do not know if he is actually going to sit down and earn some money by doing something. Though we are working actually at it, and maybe over the next decade, we'll end up figuring out what is it that he would actually like to do. But yes, this is the essence of future planning, where together with families we can think through and take concrete steps on what they wish to do. So, Vibha, again, being just the COVID year and this also the COVID plus 1 year that we are already in, how do you feel it has affected the children and the families with respect to all the training programs, all the scheduling that they would have done, and what would be your advice to families in terms of continuing all of the training they want to do for their child?
Um, COVID has been a mixed bag, Chitra. I think many challenges, of course, for many of our families. Discontinuation of school, therapy, how confusing it was for children not to be able to go out, not to be able to meet people they love, um, and how to explain that to them, how to explain why it's going on and on. We all experienced so much anxiety, So, for children who understand even less why this is happening, the anxiety was several times over. Um, and on the flip side, I'm going to say there were some advantages, Chitra. There were some positive things that happened. What were some of the positive things that happened? Children spent a lot of time with their parents and particularly their dads. So suddenly, dads were working out of home. There was no commute. And so they could actually see what went into a child's life. It became visible. And there were windows of opportunity to engage with the child and do things with the child, which was wonderful. Um, Many kids I know learned things at home, which was learning how to cook, learning how to fix yourself a sandwich, make a cup of tea, laying the table. So they learned a lot of chores at home, which was wonderful. That was structured into the day. Many parents used that opportunity. There's one wonderful mother I know who has three children, all with different issues. And she said she had always wondered how she could ever manage without any help at home, and whether they would all fall apart. And she said the lockdown was the most reassuring time because she was able to allocate chores to each one of the children and to her husband. And they were able to perform together as a family and pull it together. So that has been a great opportunity. And I'm going to take this chance to say how important it is to do chores. It sounds very silly to say, your child needs to learn chores, but the reason it's very important is that doing a chore like laying the table, planning a meal, making your bed requires planning, execution, monitoring, all of which are executive function skills. And you need that to be able to do any job. So if you know that, okay, I have to make my bed, then you need to know, okay, first I have to do this, then I have to fold this, then I have to plan how to spread it out. It has to be done before X time because after that, somebody's going to come into the room to start working. So you plan the activity, you plan the time, you monitor the sequence. It teaches you many important things. So I think people have used this time for that also, and I would urge parents to continue to do that, to urge them to encourage their child to not just be independent, but also give them a sense of purpose and importance by assigning chores to them. I think that has been important. And lastly, I'm going to say the other way in which the lockdown has been positive is that for some families and for some children, school was a stressor. It was full of stress about other children bothering them, bullying them, not being accepted. So suddenly they're in the safe, accepting space of their home and they're actually learning better. So that also is a situation that I've come across. So it's been both ways. So variable.
Awesome, Vibha. You summed up everything so beautifully and touched upon all the various things that happened. And yes, I agree. We need to look at all the positives and move on and hope for some kind of looks like a hybrid normalcy that will land up where in all our lives where we all of us would be also working from home, and so will perhaps the children also be studying from home as well as from out. So that in a coming couple of years will, you know, help us understand what's going to be the best thing for us. I'm taking you on to another topic where, in all the conversations that comes up, parents ask me, we don't have too much in terms of government aid, or there are not too many large such programs or help in terms of finance that is available for children or adults with disability. I have these case study calculations, Vibha, where I share about uh, you have to provide for yourself, right? When you're alive with your child and you will retire one day, you will need money to look after a certain lifestyle that you're living today with your child. Once you pass away, you need to have enough money that you need to provide for as long as your child is alive, right? Uh, the big question that comes is how do I, I keep pushing people that start saving, start investing, start quicker, because then money compounds, and then that purpose that is needed for the child will actually be ready, irrespective of whether the child is going to be at home or going to be in a residential setup. So, one question that irks families, or although I very bluntly talk to them about it, is what is the life expectancy that a parent should consider while planning for their child? Usually they would land up with maybe other complications also. And when I'm actually putting pen to paper and doing some financial calculations, and I say that, listen, you might live till 90, but for your child, for how long would you like to plan? Because this is the second generation, right? And every time you're planning, the money just keeps on becoming larger and larger. It goes into crores, and people get psyched that, how on earth am I going to provide so much money, and how am I going to be able to take care of all of that, plus me, plus maybe a second, third child, education, marriage, parents, so many things. Broader question, please, coming to you. What would you say?
I think, Chitra, it's not easy. It's very individual because it depends upon what the issue is. There are some kids for whom the life expectancy is like of any other adult. Um, so, for example, if you take autism alone, just as a disability, we have no data to suggest that they are at higher risk for health issues that might shorten their life expectancy. Second thing I'm going to say is it depends on other factors like family history and other disorders and so forth. And thirdly, even conditions like, say, Down syndrome, where we used to say life expectancy is lower because of various um, health issues that are comorbid with that happen along with Down syndrome. Things have changed so much in the last 20 years, right? I mean, it's dramatically different from what it was 20, 30 years ago because cardiac surgery has advanced, treatment of illness has advanced. So life expectancy, such as it is constantly increasing, which is a good thing, but which also means that you need to plan for medical expenses, living expenses, all those things as your child becomes an adult and an older adult. That it does mean that. And I think imagining that your child will lead a long and full life is the premise we should begin with, just as we should begin with the premise that my child will work and will earn someday, but at the same time, I need to plan for the future. I'm also against the kind of planning where families say, well, I need to plan for everything because my child is going to be completely dependent. Then that leads to subtle message to the child as well as to everybody else that this child is always going to be dependent and is never going to be independent in any way, leave alone financially. Rather, I would say the expectation would be that, yes, my child is going to be independent and is going to be able to take care of himself or herself, most likely going to go to work, get some kind of job, be able to earn money. But even so, I will plan for my child's future needs. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm saying both. I'm saying uh, expect that or set up expectations that your child will be independent and will work, but at the same time plan as if you may need to financially support that.
Yes, Vibha, you covered it beautifully. In fact, as part of the financial planning portion, we always talk about how much would be needed for health. As we age, all of us would need something called a health coffers, which is over and above a medical insurance that is taken for us, for ourselves to cover, say, basic hospitalization, etc. One thing I wanted to check with you is, as a child till the age of 16 or 18, a family keeps coming to you and consults you and requests you about, what next do I know for the need to do for the child? What else do I need to do? How do I do? What do I do? And I've seen you spot that so many times that, I have ever met you with Shravan pointing out that, Chitra, I think you're not looking at this portion. Pay attention to this. You seem to be doing this fairly well enough, or you have done too much of this. Now move on to that. Right. So that whole, you were the go-to person where you used to guide us on, based on all the therapies and everything else that is happening in his life, what needs to be done. Now Shravan is 22 and he's going to be, say, maybe 40 in the next 20 years. That one person who we should keep going back to, who can keep tabs and guide us about health as well as all that is required for him. I'm talking on behalf of all the parents who have children who are adults. How would you tell them that what is the kind of system they should have in place to figure what all is needed, right from training for just being independent at home as well as outside, and then preparing themselves for employment and going forward?
Uh, so, Chitra, I think every one of us needs a mentor. We are all interconnected in some way or the other. And I think just as you needed me at some point, I needed somebody else and may need you at another point. So I think families need to seek and find people who will be mentors, coaches for them. It could be a developmental pediatrician, it could be another parent, an older parent, it could be somebody to touch base with every couple of times a year to talk about, here is a big picture. I begin my conversations with people asking them, what are your hopes and dreams? And therefore, to get that, what are some of the things you've already done? And what are some of the things you'd like to do? I don't think you may recall it as me giving you gyan, but I think it was more me asking you questions to figure out what you've already done and what more you'd like to do. So I think a good, sort of a sounding board is somebody who will recognize that you actually have those answers yourself. You just need somebody to think out loud with, if you will, so that you can figure out, okay, what is my hope for my child? And to get there, what have I already done? I've done many things and I've worked hard, and these are things I've already done. And what else do I need to do? And what else would I like to do? Not just need to do, what else would I like to do to get him or her to that point? I don't know, Chitra. I'm going to turn around and ask you, who else can be that mentor? Certainly you can be a financial planning mentor. Are there other mentors that you would, think of who might be helpful to a parent?
Yes, Vibha. I feel this is where your family resource center project will also guide us. And as older parents, being part of a support group, we are actually able to, handhold each other in our times of need, talk it all out, and take guidance from each other. It's been working very beautifully, and we constantly reach out to families and tell them that you're not alone. Please be a part of these beautiful networks, which are age or skill appropriate. And there's so much of sharing. They give a lot of input and a lot of venting out space also in terms of what all is happening in our lives. Thank you so much, Vibha. I feel that this is a conversation that a lot of families will definitely benefit from listening to. I would like to request parents and caregivers to reach out to us if they would like guidance from you on more issues that they would love to hear your thoughts on.
Thank you, Chitra. Absolute pleasure chatting with you as always. And if I can be of help in any other way, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks a ton again, Vibha, for your time and wisdom.
You were listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer. the CEO of MFA and a trustee with the Forum for Autism. If you find this podcast relevant and interesting, it will be great if you leave a review, share, like and subscribe. You could also let us know if there is any specific topic that you would like us to cover. Feel free to email her on chitra.iyer@myfinad.com, or you can call her on 9833 785 892. That is 9833 785 892.